Assalamu alaikum. So, if you're curious to whether it's better to marry a revert or a non-revert, it really depends on the situation and the person that you are, because there are many factors, right? Sometimes reverts are not really welcomed when it comes to, um, you know, non-revert families, right? Which is kind of weird though, because like they feel like they won't be able to like share their culture. It's kind of strange because technically speaking or generally speaking, Islam is culture in and of itself. So it's really hard for people to find spouses. I mean, you have all these like dating apps, whatever, like nikah apps, whatever the case, but like people still use it like Tinder. So it's a problem. Some people use it just like for hookups, and like it becomes a really big problem because like there's some people who are serious and then some people not so serious. So the conversations tend to start up nicely, but like again, depending on the individual, kind of goes sideways. So on the other hand, coming from Muslim background, like as a family, like household, like you grew up Muslim, it really does depend again, because like you can either know your heritage, you can know the history, you can know the foundation of Islam, practice it from like a young age, or you could know the basic Islam, but like your family doesn't necessarily practice apart from the usual stuff, praying, fasting, reading the Quran, and stuff like that. But like the rest, like the Sunnah or other stuff, not so much. On the other hand, you have a revert who is, mashallah, doing his or her best to apply Islam in his or her life. So, on one hand, one would suggest to marry a revert because they're not really tainted with the ethnical culture. Looking into Pakistanis, and I'm not really bashing on anyone here, but like looking to Pakistanis out of Somali, Bengalis, whatever the case may be, a great majority. I mean, these ethnical groups are somewhat infused with Islam because they have been following Islam for generations. So, in time, of course, there are some things that would be forgotten, right? And the basic ritualistic stuff is still being remembered. Now, of course, General Abdullah and General Fatima, the average Muslim doesn't really know much. So they would normally follow a sheikh or a scholar, whatever, like, or sometimes, people go on YouTube, they go on TikTok, they go on whatever, like Facebook and all that. But they don't really take time to actually read. Some Muslims, who grow up with Islam, but like not necessarily in depth, find Islam when they're older. And they're like, oh my God, it's kind of like, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. And well, like there's a lot of things in Islam that like cultural Muslims, like people who grow up in Islam or Muslim households, don't really know, and then they come to know that later on. However, with some reverts, again, it also differs. Some research Islam for a long period of time, and then they become Muslim, they revert, they embrace it, which at the end of the day, they end up knowing more than the actual Muslims who grew up Muslim. But like with some reverts, it can be like emotional or just like being attracted to the idea of the community, a group of people. Let's face it, like as human beings, we are always attracted to like a community, a group of people, like people who are like minded. We share the same thing, so that's always something that you're looking forward to. In the West, there's a lot of revert alone. In America, Midwest. Central, right? Same thing in Canada, same thing in the UK, Germany, in the West, So people embrace Islam, they like the idea of Islam, but it can be really hard to practice it because sometimes you have maybe someone who's, mashallah, like 12 years old, 13, 14, 15, but they're still living with their parents and maybe they're secret Muslims and they don't want their parents to find out, right? So it can be tricky. But going back to the whole, marriage thing, like, subhanallah. On one hand, I do advise like Muslims to marry, reverts, because with them, they're not really tainted by ethnic culture. They are ready to marry anyone. But another problem comes when two people or other two parties who are interested in marriage are not incapable, not compatible, like, psychologically don't really have the chemistry, so that clashes there. You have a revert, or like, a non-revert, but again, because again, you know, personality matters, chemistry matters, what you're looking for matters, like what you're expecting, what your outlook in life is, because there are different type of people out there with different personalities, so it really depends. Some Muslims are very, 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 very Amish conservative, and some are just like, very moderate. Some are conservative, but like at the same time somewhat moderate. So it really depends. Iman, taqwa, I would say, even though people say does iman, rises and falls, I would say taqwa sort of goes up and down. Like it becomes strong and then it becomes weak. But like the same thing with iman, but like with iman, it's slightly different. That's a topic for another time. Put that aside. So on one hand, like when it comes to Middle East or Africa, whatever other places which are not really Muslim centric, I would say it's really good to marry someone who's traditionally Muslim. But again, today, the whole modern world has pretty much stretched everywhere. So now people are like, oh no, I don't want to marry a Somali. No, I don't want to marry an Arab, or I don't want to marry my someone from my ethnic group. But like I want to marry somewhere else, right? It's a lot of people. So it's a good thing, right? It's really a good thing, because at the end of the day, we're mixing blood. We are expanding the ummah. So I really can't say which person, which people to marry, like which people is it better to marry, whether it's cultural Muslims or reverts. But I will say, on one hand, it is better to marry a revert in the sense that they are full in Islam. I'm not saying cultural Muslims aren't full in Islam, like they are, but like for them, it's you grow up spoon fed, like your foundation is Islam. Your foundation is based on Islam. Your surroundings, your boundaries. You already grew up in it. You have the knowledge. With the reverts, they are surrounded by people who don't share Islam with them, right? So it's hard for them, which is why it's really good for cultural Muslims to marry reverts. They invite them, but unfortunately, sometimes you have, may Allah forgive us, you have Muslims, cultural Muslims, who don't really invite reverts to their house or to their homes, in the sense that they don't marry them. And when one of, a son or a daughter is interested in a revert, the family's like, oh no, we don't want this, we don't want that. I mean, somehow, like, you see this kind of problem a lot, right? So it's complicated. But it shouldn't be complicated. Wallahi, Islam is simple. We already have, the proper structure and everything on what to do and what to follow and like how to behave and all that. So why do we complicate things? That's the question. Like, why do we complicate it? Islam made everything simple, clear, and easy to follow and do and apply. So wallahi, sometimes it's just the whim, it's just what people desire, like, oh, I don't want this, oh, I don't want that. Because like sometimes you'll find someone who is really compatible with you, but because like, oh, she's too short, she's too tall, oh, he's too this, he's too that, or she's this, she's that. Like, we put on a lot of, I use the term baggage. We put a lot of baggage when it comes to looking for a spouse. When the time comes, when we do find a spouse, we're like, oh no, we always find this like discrepancies or whatever the case is. So I can say, like, may Allah help us to accept what He brings towards us, right? But on the other hand, side note, I will say in the West, it's probably better to marry a revert, because wallahi, our sisters and brothers are looking for spouses. We are in a a society that is surrounded by fitna. Nikah is simple. I mean, you have a lot of people like, with baby mamas sleeping around, doing this and that, like doing all that kind of stuff. So Islam made nikah, marriage, so simple that it's mind-boggling how simple it is. But at the same time, people rather have like end up having having girlfriends or like side chicks or this and that. Like, why? Like, subhanallah, you find a girl. Like, I remember a video of Khalid Yasin, and he was saying a young child is going to the parents like, Mom, Dad, I love this girl, and the girl is telling her parents like, Mom, Dad, I love this guy. So why don't those parents put those those young kids together, either stay with them for some time until the young man or the young woman can get on their feet. But like, obviously that idea is so, we're living in modern times, they have to find their own place. Like, subhanallah, no. When you go to third world countries, like, okay, let's say East Africa, for example, you have Arab families whereby they marry their young kids, and then they're like, you know what, this is your room, do what you can until you can stand on your feet. I mean, of course, like, they live in sort of like, compounds and villages, whatever the case is. But like, it's very simple. Like, even in a house, you have separate rooms, like, you and your wife can stay here, or like you and your husband can stay here. But in America, everything is like so independence. Everything is like, so it's just like different. So people, let us make it easy for reverts to find spouses. Reverts are looking for spouses every single day. Like, I come across, a lot of brothers and sisters like, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that, and I'm like, man. And subhanAllah, like, sometimes even when you do go to the masjid, they complicate stuff, right? So at the end of the day, I would advise just like keep your eyes open. Like, subhanAllah, if you do know a good revert brother or sister, go for it. Like, whether through a friend or yourself on your own. Like, don't just like, when you embrace Islam, don't make it so difficult for yourself. Islam is not all about strict. It's not black and white. It really does depend on the circumstance, right? Look at Khadija radiallahu anha. She approached the Prophet, peace be upon him. I mean, of course, like, through someone else, but like, regardless, if you are a woman, if you're a girl, you like a boy, approach the boy. University, whatever the case is, like, you're in a study group, whatever, approach. Same thing for a man. You know someone. I mean, depending on the type of person that you are, you can either approach them through another person, friend, or directly. At the end of the day, make dua, approach that person, Allah, let's get married. It doesn't matter if, you don't have to say, heck. If you live in two different states, you visit each other, you make dua until the time comes when you're actually together. Because at the end of the day, the whole point of marriage, the whole point of nikah is for you not to do haram. Right? We live in the West. If you're in California, like, New York, or like, Massachusetts, or like Florida, I mean, it's, yeah, in the South, I mean, come on. Personally, I feel like it's really easy to marry, but like, people just like need their minds to change a bit, So guys, let's us make an effort to make nikah simple and easy. Don't waste people's time, Get on top, be straight up. This is what I want, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I'm expecting. Do the whole 21 questions, what you're looking for, what do you want, like, what you need, what you like, da. That's it, make it simple. Don't go after a whole year like, oh, I'm still getting torn. Yallah, no. Like, first I'll say like 4 or 5 months, 3 months, like, that's a stretch. By a week, you should be able to know every single thing about this individual. By just a week. Heck, even a week is long. I mean, you see someone you like her, like, oh my god, I'm interested. Like, you ask all the questions that you want. But of course, well, then again, not of course. You ask all the questions that you want. At the end of the day, when you feel that connection, like, okay, subhanAllah, like, this person is good, let's get married. Simple.